So, what if you could actually master your budget without ever having to stare at a spreadsheet again? Today, we're going to dive into a method that's way less about tracking every single penny and a lot more about retraining your brain. We're talking about making smart financial choices become automatic, kind of like a reflex.
You know the story, right? It's super frustrating. You start a new budget, you've got all the best intentions, you're tracking everything, and then, a few weeks later, it just completely falls apart. So what's really going on here? Why do most of them fail?
Well, the honest truth is that traditional budgeting can feel like a draining full-time job. So let's get into it and break down some of the hidden costs, the real frustrations that make it such a grind. Okay, first up, there's this thing called decision fatigue. Constantly having to think about and log every single coffee, every little subscription. It is mentally exhausting. And you know what happens when your brain gets tired, right? It's way more likely to just throw its hands up and say, you know what? I'll deal with this tomorrow. And then there's just the sheer amount of time it all takes. Tallying up receipts, updating those spreadsheets, trying to figure out some complicated app. All of that just eats away at the tiny bit of free time we actually have. It pretty quickly becomes a chore you just learn to dread. And here's the real kicker. This whole process depends on your willpower, which, let's be honest, is not an infinite resource. All it takes is one stressful day, one really tempting sale, and boom, that carefully planned budget gets totally derailed by an impulse buy. It's just this endless cycle of effort and frustration. So this brings us to a really important question, a huge shift in thinking. What if you're not the one failing the budget? What if the whole system of manual budgeting is just fundamentally flawed for the way our brains actually work today? So let's explore this really fascinating idea. Instead of constantly fighting against our own impulses, what if we could just train a new, better instinct? What if we could make smart financial choices automatically, without all that mental heavy lifting? And that brings us to the core concept right here, instinctive budgeting. Look, this isn't about counting your pennies. It's about building a skill, a financial reflex, really, that lets you instantly get a feel for whether a purchase lines up with your goals or not. And when you put the two side by side, the difference is just, well, it's night and day. Instead of all that effortful tracking, we're aiming for automatic decisions. Instead of burning through your limited willpower, you're building a reliable instinct. The whole focus shifts from obsessing over what you've already spent to making smarter choices for your future. So the big question is, how do you actually build this financial muscle? Well, this is where a tool called Budgetgreenlight comes into the picture. And I want you to think of it less like another budgeting app and more like a gym for your financial brain. It's designed to do just one thing, build that powerful instinct. You can see right away this whole approach is designed for how we actually live our lives. The training happens through these quick little mogul-friendly games, so there are no long, boring courses to sit through, because let's be real, who has time for that? The real power here is repetition. That's the key to building any new instinct. Okay, so how does this thing actually work? How can a simple little game retrain something as complicated as our spending habits in just a couple of minutes a day? Get this. Each training session is this rapid-fire game that lasts exactly 78 seconds. That's it. It's literally designed to fit into those tiny little pockets of your day, like when you're waiting for your coffee or you're on a short break at work. And the whole process is incredibly simple. You get a spending scenario popped up on your screen. You make a quick call. Is this a red light, a spending trap you should avoid? Or is it a green light, a smart choice you'd approve? Then you get instant feedback. And just through that simple repetition, your brain starts to automatically recognize these patterns out in the real world. And here's the really clever part. This is where the psychology comes in. The whole design taps right into our brain's reward system. Every time you make a correct decision, you get a little hit of dopamine, which creates this positive feedback loop. It actually makes learning feel good, so your brain actively wants to do it again. It turns a chore into a game you actually want to play. We all know repetition is what turns practice into an actual instinct, right? That's why the program gives you 100 of these game sessions. It's a full training cycle designed to give you more than enough practice to really make smart decision-making your new default setting. So what's the investment for this entire training package? It's a one-time purchase of just $8. That's it. No subscriptions, no hidden fees. It's just a single payment for a tool that helps you build a skill that can last a lifetime. And this right here, this is the ultimate promise. The goal of this whole process, the whole reason for doing it, is to get to a point where you no longer have to agonize over financial choices. They just happen instinctively and correctly. And that, of course, brings us to the most important part, the payoff. What does it actually look and feel like when your money decisions become second nature? How does it really change your day-to-day life? Well, the end result of this kind of training is pretty transformational. You develop this much sharper ability to instantly spot those subtle spending traps. You gain this new confidence in your own financial choices. Your decision-making becomes way more automatic and a lot less stressful. And, most importantly, all of this naturally leads to real, tangible savings in your bank account. So, at the end of the day, while the method might feel like a game, the goal is profoundly serious. This isn't about getting a high score. It's about fundamentally changing your financial habits so you can build a more secure future. It's about winning with your money. And that kind of leaves us with this really fascinating final thought, doesn't it? If a 78-second game can start to rewire our financial instincts, what other complex behaviors could we improve with this kind of microtraining? It really opens up a whole world of possibilities for how we learn and grow. Thanks for joining me for this one.